Hello, everybody. Welcome to this segment of Let's Talk About It with Jan W. Tanaway. I mean, I don't need to introduce myself. You guys know who I am already. But yes, so this new segment for the YTA Grooming and Styling page, where we add a different dimension, an informative dimension of the conversations and the guests that we bring on. And today, I mean, he's not really a guest, I've had, we've done things together before, So, I mean, Michael Tabirade, welcome again.
Thank you.
Yes, it was so good. The first chat was so good. We have to do this again.
Come on.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, and today, we're bringing you some realness on the high achiever, high performer front. We're going to be talking about that. I like to call it the secret life of the high achievers, because I want to get into, our journeys and, our personality types and what makes us high achievers, because I believe that a lot of people could learn from that. And even people that are high achievers out there that are struggling to manage it, they could learn a lot from listening to a conversation like this. So, Michael, tell us who you are, obviously to my platform here.
Cool, yeah. I'll give a very brief overview. So my name is Michael Tabaradi. Currently, I'm a high achievement coach. And so I've got my qualifications in EMCC and going to get further accreditations in the ICF and ILM as well. And effectively what I do is I focus on ambitious professionals and self-starters, and I help them do three things. So number one, help them increase their productivity, help them enhance their performance, but also live on purpose as well, which follows like 4 habits that I really focus on as well. And so that's what I do inside and outside of my professional career. And so for those of you who don't know, I actually work for NHSX, which is basically the digital arm of the NHS. And all that really means is implementing all these different digital solutions so we can be more efficient and effective for the benefit of the public. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
So Michael just lives his life, in the realms of high performance and productivity. He dreams about it. He wakes up in it. He eats in it. That's what his life is. And when I hear him talk, I'm just kind of thinking, what is your life like? I mean, do you wake up in the morning and everything is like planned? Like it just makes you wonder.
I hear you.
So I mean, the first question I wanted to go with was to you. What is a high achiever? How would you define, a high achiever? Just to start with, so that people know, because we use that term a lot, but I don't think people actually know what it is, what it means to be a high achiever.
Yeah, do you know what? Quite simply, the way I see it is somebody who's not as scared to go for what they want. Simple. They're not scared to go for what they want. And so they will put all their resource, all their energy, all their capacity in an intelligent way that enables them to get it. Does that make sense? Because maybe at the beginning, you could go like with all this energy and ferociousness, but obviously life and experience will tell you that you need to sort of like have rest. You need to do it a certain way. You need to have a strategy, all these things that people don't like doing. And so high achievement is just making sure you're not scared to do that stuff in order for you to get what you really, really want to have. And so with any high achiever, they need to adopt certain principles, certain habits. Not everyone's going to be the same. Do you know what I mean? And I think those principles, I'm going to say the V word, yeah? You need to know yourself. You need to know your values.
Talks about values all the time.
I'm telling you.
Love it.
So yeah, to me, that's what a high achiever is. If you look at any sort of high achievers that we see in sort of like the commercial world and the big bad world and all this kind of stuff, they all know what they want. It's irrefutable. And they're not willing to budge unless it's at the detriment of them navigating towards their goals. So there is also something about high achievement as well. You need to be flexible and adaptable. So yeah, to answer that question, that's what high achievement is to me.
Absolutely, and that's it. I think I want to stress on the part that it's somebody that does it in an intelligent, productive, proactive manner. It's not just somebody that just has these lofty dreams and ideas and they're just like just going at it, just making things happen, but you don't see the tail or the head. You know, that's not what we're talking about. There's a lot of people out there like this. You know, I'm not throwing shade, you know, because, you know, I'm known to throw a bit of shade, but that's not it. You know, it's people that have that structure. You know, to me, you know, when people often ask me, you know, because the reason why I chose us to have this conversation, because we are both high achievers, we are both, you know, high performers. And so, you know, for me, when people ask me that question, you know, what is it that makes you have that, that intelligent aspect of what you're doing, that balance? I always say discipline. You know, discipline to me is that thing. And the way that I define that discipline is obedience to myself. Okay, obedience to myself, to be able to say, you know what, Jan, to know my limits. So Jan, you need to stop. Jan, you need to stop, and you need to think about this. Jan, you need to go for this. Jan, here's an opportunity. And also, Jan, you need to stop and say no. Okay, which is a massive, massive thing, you know, because, you know, you can't be a high achiever and be proactive and all these things if you don't learn the skill to say no to things. You know, that's one thing that I've learned over the last 10 years. Definitely.
No, I 100% agree with you. And I think to add to that, it comes back to what I was saying before in terms of knowing yourself. Because if you don't understand yourself, then you won't know when to say yes or no. You know, you have to really have that time to reflect and look back at your experiences and understand preferentially, what does this mean for me? What meaning do I get? What meaning am I trying to get from my life? Who am I trying to express? Like, I never say to anybody, you know, what is your purpose? No, who do you want to be? That's the question. Who do you want to be, and how do you need to become that person? Okay, then we can ask things like, okay, who needs to be involved? What resources do you need? All of that kind of stuff. But it's who do you want to be? Because once you answer that defining question, you become a high achiever, because you start to become an uncommon breed. You know, that's what it's about. You know, you start, and becoming an uncommon breed is truly expressing your authentic and honest is the key word, nature. So once you understand and you look back at your life and you reflect and you know this stuff, then you can be a high achiever. Otherwise, if you're doing this whole superficial thing, you may have made money, you know, all these different ways, but you will reach a ceiling. We're always going to reach.
That's it. Yes. It's that authenticity. It's about who you want to become. And the way that translates to me as a social entrepreneur, I look at it like, you know, your impact, you know, the impact of, you know, what impact you're trying to have. And to me, that's very linked to who you are as a person and trying to find out who you are. Because yes, unless you know the impact that you want to have, you know, then you're just, you can just, you know, float it. And to me, that's what makes the difference between, you know, a corporate entrepreneur and a social entrepreneur as well. Because as social entrepreneurs, we tend to be very much connected to that. Because, you know, it's very, everything that we do is linked to the person that we're trying to become, the mission, the legacy, you know, and that's why I leaned more towards that, you know, from the beginning of my career, because I'm all about that purpose, that person, you know, and becoming. So absolutely, I absolutely love that you mentioned that, you know. So, you know, just going on to the next question, you know, which I thought is quite interesting. As a high achiever, what is one quality that you see yourself having? What is your quality as a high achiever?
The one quality.
Yeah.
It's difficult because there are 4 in my package of habits, but I'll give one. I think for me, it's seeking crystal clarity. I said it like that for a reason. So crystal clarity says something about my nature first, like who am I, but also about what is it that I'm trying to do, or who is it that I'm trying to become. Because for me, I'm a very inquisitive person. I will always ask questions, even if I've asked the question again, to understand, because for me, questions are the answer. And so once you start to get good at asking questions, you get good answers, that gives you the impetus to take action. Sometimes you won't get the answers. Sometimes you have to take action in order to get the data, which is the results, to then know what to do. So for me, crystal clarity is so important, and it sends the breeds from the uncommon breeds. And some people may say, it's not all about structure, blah, blah, blah. It's about being creative. And look, they don't have to be separate. They don't have to be separate. You know,
No, they don't.
you can add color and art form if you do have that structure and that clarity, and vice versa. You know, there's a
Yes,
symbiosis of it. You know, we have a left and a right brain for a reason, and so
absolutely.
if you understand what balance looks like for you as a person, then you can get that crystal clarity, because the more you can see that vision, the more you can put it down as a tangible goal, the more you understand what is required in order to get from one step to another, then you're
Mm.
opening up doors, you're opening up opportunities to again be that uncommon breed. And so I would I'd really advise people to, whatever industry or field they're in, take it ultra seriously. You know, seek
Mm.
that crystal, absolute. What makes the uncommon people uncommon? Because if you don't know these things, if you're not trying to investigate these things, then you're always going to be in a position where you're subpar. It's that simple.
Mm. Yes, yes. You know, that's very, you know, because for somebody like me that does a lot of things, and you're multidisciplinarian as well.
Yes.
So I'm just veering off the questions a little bit. You know,
Go
how
ahead.
does that work for us? You know, who are do so many different, because when you introduced yourself, you said, oh, you know, you gave us just a little bit, but there's so much more.
Yeah.
Just like me, there's so much more. Do you think that we became an uncommon breed in every different, you know, area or industry that we're impacting in? Is that how we've been able to thrive and gain success? Would you say that that's the way that it's worked?
You could argue that, you know, but you know, how many people are there here? There's 7.5 billion people in the world. You know, there's about 1 billion people that use the internet, or whatever it is. And so there are going to be, you know, versions of Jan and versions of Michael, God forbid. But it's there is, you know. And so for me, in my mind, like, I'm unique. And so for me,
Absolutely,
that
yes.
uncommon breed is that uniqueness. Yes, we share similarities, don't get me wrong, but the expression and that authentic nature that I was talking about, being so intimate with your honest self, is what separates you. It's like what you were saying at the beginning. If you're able to be yourself, if you're able to, you know, understand the vision, the mission, the purpose, all of that stuff, and bring it to life in your being, in your nature, that's what separates you. But knowing all that other stuff is what gives you the edge. So it's
Right.
applying your character and also understanding that information and data and combining the two. That's when you're an uncommon breed. And you have to commit to that daily in some way, shape, or other. So that's how I'd answer that question.
No, but I completely, you know, it hits me when you explain it like that, because, yeah, because I didn't realize this until recently, because I had to, you know, I had to unpick, because I chose this, like I said, I chose this topic for a reason, because I started unpicking myself as, you know, as a high achiever. And I thought, you know, what is it? You know, why is it that, you know, I'm able to be efficient in so many different, people have flagged that up to me, and I said, but why? And then as you said this, I recognize that this is the process that I go through on the daily. You know, I wake up, I'm just like, okay, how am I going to be uncommon?
Yeah.
How am I going to stand out? How am I? That's it. And this is something that you just, you know, you live with, you know, and it transpires in every single aspect of your life.
Yeah,
you know,
of course.
and so I really, it touches me when you explain it like that. Beautifully explained, you know. So, you know, that leads me to the next thing. You know, we talk about positives, but what is one negative of that? You know, that being a high achiever.
I hear you, man. I think so. I just wanted to add something to the last point and come back to it. So it's not necessarily about comparison is good, okay, in order to have a baseline, okay, but you're really comparing yourself against yourself with what you've done before in order for you to improve, okay. So the iteration, so it's against yourself, so to speak, and with yourself at the same time. A negative of a high achiever is that they're a lone wolf. They are a lone wolf in some degree, shape, or form. And so they may, it's not even they will alienate people. You know, people may not understand their work ethic. People may not understand why they don't sit down and watch the latest shows on Netflix and all of this stuff. People won't understand why they're saving their money for a mortgage. People may not understand why they're not looking to go out and they want to put their, you know, pay off their debts and everything else. People won't understand those things because it's not common. It's uncommon to do those things. So you alienate yourself at the detriment of you aiming to achieve. That's what happens, because when you want to achieve, you have funnel vision, you have focus, you have a certain sort of lens that enables you to only sort of target certain things, and you dismiss everything else because you know what you want, because you've done that groundwork beforehand. So that's
That's
some of the
correct.
negatives of being a high achiever, I would say.
No, yes, and I hear that, and I think when I think, towards me, to my journey and things like that, I can see that, I've definitely had, like, periods like this. When I started, when I set up Sunbird Enterprise, my 5 enterprise business model, almost 6 years ago, I became the worst friend to everybody. Everyone hated me, everybody hated me because I just did not have time to care like I did. I didn't have time to, that's it. Because when you're in, yeah, and you have to get that thing. Yeah, absolutely. So, but for me, I had to kind of climb out of that, learn to balance that aspect.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different things in my life that values. Talk about values. So many things that I value that need my attention. So I learned to be a bit more, what's the word? A bit cooler about it, just a little bit more, not lethargic, but just kind of a bit cooler about it. So it's been a learning process. I still have time when that creeps back, and I'm just like, forget everything. But it's great to have accountability buddies to bring you down to earth.
People
yes,
make the difference. People make the difference, and you have to be very selective. Like, I bang on about values and principles and stuff because I'm not afraid to be awkward or to act a certain way because of my values and principles. And I think, again, whether I'm in that category or not, I would like to put myself in that category, and I'm moving towards my journey. I'm a high achiever in my own right because I know what I want. And
absolutely.
so if it means people need to be sidetracked to whatever it is, not in a bad way, but in a way that is integral, I'm happy to go down that route because I know what I'm about, and I know I would have communicated it in a specific way. So I think it's about understanding, again, what you want, who you are, your values, and where you're going as well. So key, so important in this.
Absolutely. And it's interesting when you mentioned about, alienating and alienation. Absolutely. And when you see a lot of entrepreneurs or high achievers and things like the quotes that they post is always the similar quote. It's a very lonely road. Don't trust everybody around you. Oh, no one's like, this kind of quotes. We've all posted them at some point. Come on. But this is it. I don't necessarily think that we alienate ourselves. It's a different breed. People don't always get it, unless you're in kind of the industry. Like I said, we're not in the same industry, but unless you're in that process, you don't really understand what goes into it, the sacrifices and everything like that. For me, again, this is something that I had to work with because obviously I have a team now, so I, like you say, a high achiever trusts their method, they trust their way of working. It's really difficult to let go. Very difficult. I mean, for me to get to a point where, I could have like a team and just be like, it was hard. It was hard. And even today, I'm always like, second guessing, and people are like, what, do you trust me to do this or not? And they get frustrated with me, but this is just part of it. It's part of that, like you said, that alienation in a lot of ways,
It's a reality, trust me.
No, it is. There's a lot of things that we need to work towards, so that answers that point. So an interesting point attached to this was, do you feel that high achievement and success and gaining success can become an addiction?
100%. My sister says it to me. I remember years ago, she looked at me, she was like, oh my gosh, you're actually addicted to success. Because she'll always, see me on the computer, or, if we're going somewhere, whatever it is, what I'm saying, she knows that it's related to a goal that I'm trying to achieve. I'm always ticking. Like, my friends laugh at me because it's like, every time I talk about rest or taking annual leave or whatever it is, they're like, you're not going to rest, come on. And I'll be like, I'll rest with it. But I can't. Like, it's not, I don't do it on purpose, I think it's just ticking,
This is on.
It's just ticking. And so, like, it is an obsession. It is an obsession. And it's just a continual game. And so with that in mind, it becomes part of your being, I'm not doing this because, like, part of it is, I don't know how to say it. I don't know if the word is fun, but it's just part of me. Like, I'd rather just do stuff.
No, fun. Yes, fun. I agree with that.
Yeah.
It's fun to be switched on all the time.
Yeah.
It's fun to be thinking of the next thing. It's fun to just want to get, yeah, it's fun. You
Yeah.
know, I think that's what it is. It just becomes a part of you. But for me, you know, like I said, my journey's been different, you know, because the moment I got married,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Story, mate.
things are different. You know, you have to share your obsession. You know, you have to fine tune things, and then you have the kids, and then the kids just that's just like, you know, no, it's great. It's great.
Of course
People
it is.
is great.
Yeah.
I'm just you know speaking the real here. You know, so I've had to learn again to kind of to balance that obsession that's there, that you know that addiction.
Mm.
You know, to the sense that you know I need to achieve. Actually, I don't know if I balanced it because what happened is it turned into and spilled over into being a husband and a dad.
What do you mean?
Well, you know, because people that know me very well would be like, but Jan, you know, how do you do all these things outside? You're a teacher, you come, you cook, you come home, you cook, you clean, you do all these things. Like, you know, everybody that knows me is that I can run a house. I can run a household on top of everything.
Wow.
And that's that, you know, that efficiency that we're talking about, productivity that we're talking about, it's that ethic that has spilled over into these other things.
I see.
You know, so instead of me saying, oh well, actually I'm going to take a balance, I'm going to like diminish and you know just no, I just converted it into that. You know, everything has to be done to its best. You know, and as a dad and as a husband, this is one of my things. You know, I told you just before I sat down here that before I got dressed and all this, that I finished the meeting, went in and cooked like, you know, a dish with like 4 sides, peeled the pineapple for dessert, ran here, and this is my life. This is it.
Yeah.
That efficiency, you know?
Yeah,
so,
yeah, I hear you.
So I don't necessarily think that you find a balance. I think it just kind of converts. Somebody out there may disagree, and I find that would be a learning point, but you know, I think it just reconverts in a different way. I don't know if you can switch it off. Oh yeah, that leads me to the next thing. Do you think it's nature or nurture? Yes. Is being a high achiever nature or nurture?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I have to always answer it in some sort of scientific way. So psychologists before used to believe in determinism, which is this is what will happen to you. Okay. But then there was all these things with Maslow's hierarchy and all this kind of stuff that spoke about free will. Mm-hmm. And so psychologists have come with this term known as soft determinism, which means things will happen to you based on your nature. However, you can change things. So what I will say to that is you are given talents that have certain tendencies towards success. I'm going to use the word talents, okay? However, nurture can accelerate you to be even more of a crystallized high achiever.
That's it.
So it's not a case of either or. They're both there, so to speak. They all have a contributing factor.
Absolutely. Because, you know, when I thought about that question, I thought about, you know, my own grandfather, my dad's dad.
Yeah.
I think this is where I get this thing from, because the man, I mean, he was a statesman, a diplomat, a doctor, you know, head of the financial commerce, the Chamber of Commerce in Ivory Coast. Like when the man passed away, like his list of achievements was like this.
Wow.
You know, like there's things that we knew and things that, and then what baffled me about that man was just the sheer diversity of industries, because it wasn't just in the same thing. How do you explain that a doctor can be a finance person and also be like, it's absolutely crazy. And then it wasn't until like in my 20s when I analyzed it and I thought, oh yeah, well I'm doing basically the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's not because I knew all these things about him. It was just inherently part of me, you know? So that's why I started thinking, you know, is this a nurture thing? Is it a gene, a high achiever gene that is passed on?
Well, I'm sure there are some scientists trying to find that out, you know? But yeah, I think nurture is more important than we think. And if you think about communities, that's part of the reason why things are broken down, amongst many other things, but part of the reason. And so if you have that right development between the ages of 0 to 7, then you're more likely going to be in a position of setting yourself up for success, so to speak. So that's something we have to sort of consider as well. Because if we just leave it to determinism and nature, then you may think that you're not capable of reaching certain things, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
But then I'm interested from your background.
Yeah.
How has your background impacted the person that you are today?
Heavily, my mother. She is the sort of person that she's doing it today. There's no like, let me do it. No, it's now. She has that bug to get stuff going, and so maybe I saw that, and in my nature, that was what enabled me to do what I needed to do. So for the longest time, she was working in her own place, and then she started to do her own thing for a very, very long time. So picking up those things, maybe subconsciously, may have attributed to me doing what I want to do. I don't know, but I can see the similarities. It's just a different world altogether.
Right.
So she's very go-getter. Some may say she's forceful, but
well, you have to be.
I see it as ambitious.
It's
just that's where maybe the nature comes into play, where it looks forceful, where maybe with my sort of like standpoint, it may be seen as something slightly different or the same. I don't know. Depends what other people say.
Yeah, so it's very interesting, isn't it? It's not until you think back to these people that influence you in your life, and then you start unpicking that and their traits and what you saw of them, that you realize that actually sometimes you get inspired by people to be a certain way without even noticing.
Exactly.
So that's a very, very interesting debate. Very interesting indeed.
Mm-hmm.
So. So linked to a little bit what we spoke about previously, do you think that high achievement or high performance are linked directly to our happiness? I think you touched on that just a little bit before. Do you think it's the way to happiness?
It's an interesting question.
So it determines.
I did a live on that based on my book, Happiness, the Fundamental Keys to Experiencing It Daily. And I said that if you look at happiness, it's broken up into two different definitions. And that was, I think it was something to do with a sense of, I think passion was the word. And then there was also something else, contentment. And so when you really look at the definitions of those words and you break it down even more, you start to realize that it's a level of satisfaction or it's a mood. And so happiness comes down into two things. It comes down to being in the moment, which is all about your mindset, being present and understanding your past and your future are faculties of your imagination. But you need to achieve. You need to have an element of, I'm going to get this. Otherwise, you just won't be happy. And so you need the balance between the two. You need to be in activities or be this person that enables you to be in flow, but you also need to be that person who is going to achieve stuff. Otherwise, you're going to start comparing yourself, and you may start not matching yourself up to, Maslow's hierarchy or the wheel of life or whatever metric you want to use. So it comes in liaison, the mood, being in the moment, but also that sense of, I want to achieve this specific goal. They come together.
I mean, yes. I mean, yeah. When I look at my take on things in my life is yes, that's it. Unless I actually get to do the things that I need to do, or I need to get to the success, or yes, I'm not fulfilled. Because that's the word, fulfillment.
Yeah. Fulfilled, satisfied. Yeah, exactly.
That's it. It's not necessarily happiness, although it's linked.
Yeah.
It's more fulfillment thing.
Yes.
Where until you've got it, you're restless.
Yes.
You're just kind of like, something's missing, and you're just like, and it makes, and it just disturbs, it bothers, it's just uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable feeling.
Yes.
And I think that's something that a lot of, high achievers suffer from.
Yeah.
So to some extent, it has an effect on mental health. It does.
Yeah, no, for real.
How do we bridge? How do we work on that?
That's a good question. My answers are always the same, because I always look at the source. You have to come back to yourself again. So I've spoken about this so many times. There's this model called the 2 dimensions of growth model, which talks about being and doing. So being is that being in the moment and, having that mood. but doing is that achievement. And so in the middle of that graph, you have your life, which goes like this, all like that, between being and doing. And so you have to look back at your life and understand what made me happy, what didn't make me happy, what do I want, what don't I want, what did these experiences say about me? What does this mean in terms of my future moments? How do I create more happier moments going forward in terms of achievement and in terms of experiencing those moods on a more frequent basis? Because without that reflection, without that analysis, it doesn't have to be deep. It could just be a conversation with a friend. Then you just won't know. And so this is why for many people past the age of 25, they go through an existential crisis, something really drastic happens. They're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. They're low for months and all this kind of stuff there. And then they get to a point where they're like, actually, no, do you know what I need? I know what I need to do. And they know what they need to do because they're not forcing themselves to be in this position, or what they're allowing their body to do what it needs to do until it works out for themselves. And then they switch on and then they know what they need to do. And that's when they're in alignment. And so many people need to go through that process. And that's pretty much how it usually works for most people.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, because a lot of the high performance, the coaches that I meet, are there. I know a specific one. Yvette Ankara, Dr. Yvette Ankara, for instance, and she dedicates her work to people that suffered from burnout, for instance. And she was saying that this is a massive, massive part of being a high achiever, professional, and things like that. So there's a lot of coaches like her out there that are there to coach people to not get to that point, because they've realized that actually being a high achiever, if you don't manage it properly, if you don't have that self-connection that we're talking about, then you are going to crash and burn. Now, from what it sounds like, you and I have got that. We've got that connection. Like, you know yourself very well. I know myself very well. I've learned to know what the triggers are. I learned to know when to say stop, when to say no. I'm still working on the no part.
We all are.
I'm not saying I'm perfect. I think I'm like 60% there.
Yeah, but you know that now. Do you know what I mean? So because that would insinuate, what that 100% looks like. So yeah.
That's something that people make fun of me all the time. When they come to me with stuff, you're going to say yes, aren't you? Yes, okay. But I'm learning. Yeah. But that's it. So these, people like, coaches have noticed that this is a huge, huge area, and getting to know programs to help people to know themselves are absolutely crucial. And that's what you do. And so just a little bit of a give us a little bit. How does it work out? Like in the different sessions that you have with people and things like that. When you get to that point where you enable them to see the light, how does that feel? What does that look like, for them?
Yeah, it's a weird one, because with the clients that I've coached, sometimes they'll get that in session 3, sometimes they'll get that in session 5 or 6, and you can see it in their eyes. That's the best way to describe it. You really see the glint in their eyes, and usually there's this really passionate, expressive, it's almost like they're not coaching me, but saying stuff that I may like to say, but obviously as a coach, I don't say, because I do a lot of questioning and a lot of that kind of stuff. And it just, the knowledge just spews out in terms of what they need to do, what decisions they need to make. And usually at that stage, that's where coaching is not needed anymore. Because the whole aim of having a coach is to fire your coach at the end of it. That's how I know I've done a good job. On average, my clients will have about 6 sessions, but some people go up to 8 sessions. I've had 8 sessions before. Some people only have 4. They only need 4 sessions. But it's only when that switches on, or they've, got to where they got to, but with that realization, because sometimes they can get to where they've got to, but they don't have that realization. That's when the relationship usually ends, So for them, it's usually that sense of, I know what I need to focus on, I know what I need to prioritize, but more importantly, I have a better relationship with myself. I understand myself much more, because I think most people are looking for templates and productivity and all this kind of stuff.
That's it.
It's more It's who are you and who do you want to be? It's that stuff. Once you can look, all those like when I burnt out and all that kind of stuff there before in the past, that's because I wasn't really connected to that honest self. I didn't really know myself really that way, being honest with myself. But now I've got to that space, or at least close to that space, that's less likely to happen. I haven't had an episode for years. I just haven't, you know? And so that's the same with individuals as well.
Amazing.
Yeah, you have to connect with yourself. And sometimes you need people with experiences, you know, to connect, to help you make that connection.
It's the root of everything, really. From just what we're talking about, it's the root. Because if you don't know yourself, you're just gonna repeat the same things over and over again, and that's yes, I can definitely see this. See, I'm even learning as we're talking, you know, because like I said, I'm understand to a point, but you know, the thing with me is I do allow myself to fall back into some old habits, you know, that's my thing, you know. And so it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense.
We're not robots, though, Jan. We're not robots. You know,
no, that's it. But again, this is the high achiever talking, because I beat myself up the moment that I'm like, oh, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm not doing what I set up, what I set myself to. And I start beating myself up. That's it. Here you are.
Critics, obviously, but you know, it like I said again, it just comes down to that honesty, connecting to that, and I would also say is what you say to yourself as well. That is
the monologue. Yes, the monologue.
Important thing, you know, in psychology they call it self 1 and 2, the angel and the devil. You know, you've got the id, the ego, and the super ego, and so don't let the animalistic or maybe negative or challenging part take over that moralistic or angel part. Like, what is not necessarily the ego, what are you saying? How are you identifying? You know, I think it's David Goggins who says, look into the accountability mirror and tell yourself brutally what it is that you need to do. Because if you don't know what you need to do, if you don't understand, if you don't have that conversation with yourself, you will forever be a slave to mediocrity. Your standard there, at least, anyway.
Yes, that's deep. Slave to mediocrity. Can you be mediocre if you're a high achiever? There is an aspect. Well, you know, can you be a mediocre high achiever?
So if we're looking at a spectrum and data of people and how they are relative to each other, yes, in essence. However, you need to look at yourself. This is why you're in competition with yourself. How have you achieved? That's the most important thing. What have you done? You will use metrics and you will use your industry and your niche to see where you measure up. And if that is something for you to go out for, then that is your other metric. But again, it needs to be in context to yourself. So
I'm talking about it from a personal level. Like, can you be a mediocre? Like, you know, those moments where you kind of fail to be honest to yourself, the moments that you fail to actually be obedient to yourself, things like that. Is that when mediocrity creeps in? That's what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. So I guess so. Potentially, if you see the signs, then you need to understand what you need to be doing or why you're feeling that way, because it may not necessarily be a bad thing. You just have to understand what season you're in and what it is that you're aiming to achieve, and if that aligns. I think it comes down to that intimate understanding relationship. So sometimes it's not fair to badge yourself as a mediocre. There shouldn't be such a thing. You're a high achiever, you're not, you know. Well,
that's it.
You know, if you create a spectrum, then you're going to create all these caveats and blah, 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 blah. You're a high achiever or you're not, in context to your own relationship with yourself and what you want to do. Simple. Keep it simple.
I like it. Well, so the other thing that I wanted to touch upon was the imposter syndrome. Okay, and how that can relate to this sometimes. You know, how can I creep into high achievement and, you know, the way that you see yourself and things like that? Is that something that you felt at times?
Of course, yeah. You know, I'm human at the end of the day. And, you know, in my mind, I'm like, I can't believe I've done this. I can't believe I'm doing this, you know. But I've realized something. There are many people who see me as confident, where maybe in the moment, I'm not confident in my mind, you know. But because I've understood, based on what people have told me in the past, I use that as a way to drag me through. So for example, I gave a presentation today for 45 minutes on this piece of work that I was doing. And in my mind, I was blabbering, blah, 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 blah. But I was like, no, Michael, what are the three distinct things that, people recognize about you? So it's your voice, it's what you say, and it's also your smile or your laugh or something like that. Yeah. And so I was like, use that to your advantage, use that articulation, use the language, use the verbosity to your advantage. You understand? And so that's what dragged me through. And so I always get feedback. I always ask for feedback, like, how was that? And some people are like, oh, I think you intimidated the seniors. Oh, I think you did really, really well, X, Y, and Z. So it's remembering those mechanisms to, again, pull me through. So imposter syndrome doesn't overcome the thing that I want to do long after the feeling is gone.
That's it.
Yeah.
Because that can be a plague. That can be a plague. It really is, I'd like to think that this is something that I've conquered, but even like 2 days ago, there was another episode and I was just like, and I just thought, when is this going to go away? Because yes, you learn how to cope with it. Yeah. But I just think it's just something that you just always need to be on, you need to be on your toes about, because it creeps back in.
Yeah.
It creeps back. I think it's kind of like, I didn't used to see that something negative, because to me that was the one thing that keeps people sober. That's the way that I see it. It keeps you humble. That's it.
Yeah. I was thinking of that word. Yes.
So you can't do without it necessarily. You can't get to a point where you're just like, oh, I'm never going to have imposter syndrome, because you'll just get too big for your boots, and that's not the purpose either. I just want to stress, being a high achiever doesn't mean that you're either pompous or arrogant or anything like that. Although there are lots of people like that.
Good question. Are they really high achievers? Because a lot of high achievers don't really say much. They just do, and they be, so to speak. And so with that in mind, it's like, with what you were saying, ego is still important for achievement, because you are beating yourself up to do whatever, but humility keeps you grounded, Yeah. And so I like what you said about having coping mechanisms, because I don't believe you can ever overcome imposter syndrome or anything like that, but you can have mechanisms, you can have that voice in your head that overcomes that micro chat in your mind. It is that you have to make it a micro chat rather than a macro chat, where it's taking over the voice in your head.
But like I said, because I look at it as like a tool to keep me humble. Yeah. I welcome it. Subconsciously I welcome it. Because if I don't have it, then it's like the ego comes and just So I'm not mad at the imposter syndrome. I'm not that mad. Do your thing from time to time. Definitely. So yeah, thank you for that answer. Yes. So just to round up, because I've asked the questions that were pertinent, and I think we answered so many of the other questions without even realizing. I would like us to give 1 to 3 nuggets of knowledge to people who are high achiever out there, who are actually struggling to keep it together. Because like I said, the people that know themselves know how to handle it, but the people that don't are really struggling, and that's when the whole mental health comes in, the addiction, and So what would you say? What are 3 things that you would say to them?
Okay, cool. So I'm going to use my philosophy: understand, reach, expand. Something that I've used for a while. And so with understanding, number 1, that's understand the situation you're in and don't beat yourself up about it. It's all about really knowing and accepting the situation and just being in a position where you're like, I am more than my situation. I can do more, but I may not be in a season or space in order to do more. So maybe you need to focus on other stuff. Maybe it's just about being there for your family. Maybe it's just about getting a new job. Maybe it's about just paying towards your savings or whatever it is. Just be accepting of it, okay? And understanding also comes down to understanding people as well. That's how you interact with experiences. That's books that you read. That's all of that kind of stuff. So, because once you do that, then you understand your nature and what you need to be focusing on you know, in terms of your niche or multidisciplinary sort of lifestyle, okay? But take it in baby steps. It's about patience. It's not about rushing. It's about that quality, okay? Because once you get the quality, you can focus on consistency later. The next step is reach. So once you get to that point of understanding, how do you cultivate your imagination in such a way where you can utilize internal faculties and mechanisms to sharpen what you want the vision of your future to be? Are you using music? Are you using posters? Are you using vision boards? Are you using other people and research and stuff to get you to feel like, do you know, I need to get started now. I need to get started now. You know, how are you cultivating that? Okay. So it was William Blake who once said, everything around us was once imagined. And so that should give you enough impetus to understand that there are things that you can actually do and achieve. It was also Miles Monroe who said, you know, the most expensive ideas are in the graveyard. And so with that in mind, if you don't do anything, those ideas will be buried. And so you have a choice. What are you looking to do? So then the next step, so as you do that, you start thinking about, you know, what sort of strategy you want to develop, what sort of, I believe in all of that stuff. You know, you can take action and stuff. That could be your MVP. But at some stage, you need to sit down and think about what are the things that I need to do. Okay. If it's a business plan. If you need help, get a mentor, X, Y, and Z. So you get to that reach stage. The final stage is expand. So you've got to a point of normalization. You've got to a point where things are running in some capacity. How are you going to expand? How are you going to let maybe the globe, the family, or community know or provide value as to what it is that you want to provide value for? And so that really connects to that understand stage. If you don't get that beginning stage, you can't expand. You just can't, because life will knock you back. And so, you know, that sequence is so key. I fashioned it in many different ways, but that is the core essence of what people need to be thinking about. But don't worry if you spend long in the understand phase, because in some degree, they're involved in each other as well, like some sort of cocoon or Russian dolls, if you want to see it like that. So yeah, that's the advice I'd give.
Beautiful, beautiful. And which book of yours is that found in specifically?
Specifically, it's interesting. So,
or is it across, because obviously it's your philosophy, your approach?
Yes, it's across many books. So this is the first book, Understand, Reach, Expand. And this is where I start to talk about this stuff, but it's across all books because there's an Understand, Reach, Expand sort of like series. But if you want like the structure, the templates, how to put it into practice, and some of that other stuff as well, this has got everything. This has got everything you need in terms of what you need to be thinking about going forward, whether it's for your personal or professional life as well.
See, everything's in the book. The writing's on the book, in the book. You know? Yeah. No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant, Michael. Thank you so much for this. You know, I love the way you think. I love your resourcefulness. I love the way that, you know, everything is already planned. Like you've written everything. And, you know, you're still young. You know, you're still young. And I said that to you last time, like thinking like in like 10 years time, where are you going to be? Like, this is scary. This is scary. Amen. Are you going to be like a doctor? You know, are you looking at all this? You know, this is scarily good stuff. I love it. I love it. You know, honestly, you know, fantastic value that you're giving out to people, you know, on your platform, on your lives and things like that. And I'm just grateful that we're able to sit down and have this conversation to, you know, put it out there to the people. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in and watching this. You know, I will drop Michael's details down. You know, he's got his books. You know, there's a lot of things that you can, you know, explore coming from him. So, you know, thank you for tuning in, Michael. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
We've got to do this again. I need to go and get another topic because this is amazing. And yes, guys, that was all for today. See you next time on Let's Talk About It with Yanda Butanaway. Take care.